Ready? So this is a photograph of Gordon Pask standing in front of his installation, the Colloquy of Mobiles. And you can see here this male figure that he's standing in front of, and he has this wonderful look on his face. And where he's standing is in the exhibition called Cybernetic Serendipity, of which his piece, Colloquy of Mobiles, was one piece. And this was not a catalog, because they didn't do a catalog, but an edition of Studio International's special issue, which has a lot of the materials that was in the original Cybernetic Serendipity exhibition. Now, a few years later, Jascha Reichart, the same curator as Cybernetic Serendipity, published this book. And Pask wrote a much longer article called A Comment, a Case History, and a Plan. And in it, he comments on the nature of aesthetically potent environments, and he describes a case history of a prior machine he had built called Musicolor. This is a lighting fixture from Musicolor. This is some of the electronic equipment that was involved. And this took place in music halls, and it was essentially a conversation between a performer playing a piano, say, and a light show. But it was much more complicated and intricate than it sounds. So after he describes the case history and then describes a plan of Colloquy of Mobiles, this is a diagram of what it's like. This is a flow chart of how it operated, or how it would operate. And these are pictures from the actual exhibition. Now, this Colloquy of Mobiles was an extraordinary event. And when a colleague of mine and I wrote a paper for this exhibition at the Walker in Minneapolis, Hugh Dubberly was the co-writer on this. We used the Colloquy of Mobiles as an example of how cybernetics connects computing, counterculture, and design. And Hugh Dubberly is an extraordinary character in his own right, and he's conceived of this social graph of cybernetics in which we show many different influences. And here's Gordon Pask and a few others. Here's Wiener and von Forster, in a sense, some of the parents of cybernetics. And it flows all the way through Stuart Brand to Nicholas Negroponte, who started the Media Lab at MIT, Tim Berners-Lee, who started the internet, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, who started Google, and many, many others very influential people. And the point is that when we wrote this paper about the influence of cybernetics on all these things, we started out with Pask. And we started out with a very important quote from him, which says, "Man is always aiming to achieve some goal, and he is always looking for new goals." And Pask figures prominently in this article of ours. Now, Pask had been written about in another very important book called The Cybernetic Brain by Andy Pickering. And subsequently to that, in 2017, this book came out about the shift from participating with art in a gallery to interacting with art in a gallery. And that was the shift in contemporary art. And the opening article by Margit Rosen, a very prominent curator and historian and author, she writes about the first seminal exhibition, which was, in fact, all about Colloquy of Mobiles. So the Colloquy has an important history. And what we're doing today is, through student work and through the work of an extraordinary fabricator named T.J. McLeish, we're reproducing the original Colloquy, full scale. So these are pictures of the original mobiles, which then are used to extract a 3D computer-aided design model, which then becomes input to what motors do and what the full-scale fabrication does. Ultimately, this is just a fake Photoshop rendering of what it would look like in this space. And we're now down to the wire. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be constructing this full-scale, the original, which looked like this in 1968. So that's a little bit of a tour of Colloquy.